We can take as a sort of model for how to do this the modernist poet Ezra Pound. Ezra Pound wrote this really influential collection of poems called the Cantos, but perhaps he's even more influential for the way he edited really great writers. So he took Ernest Hemingway and edited down his writing and turned it into something better. He took the poet Marianne Moore, edited down her writing and made it into something better. And his perhaps most famous sort of editing work is with T.S. Eliot. So T.S. Eliot is the author of The Wasteland, but before he published The Wasteland, he gave the manuscript to Ezra Pound. And if anyone's read The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot, you can thank Ezra Pound because it's a lot shorter than the original, because Ezra Pound went through line by line, and there's this section in the poem about a typist, and he said, you know what, this section is really too long, it's a little laborious, you need to cut it down. You can keep part of it, but you need to get rid of a lot of it. Or T.S. Eliot, in another section, he tried to do something that actually Ernest Hemingway does in this great book called In Our Time, where he has stories. Ernest Hemingway has stories in chapters, and then between the chapters, he has little vignettes about war. And T.S. Eliot was trying to do something similar, and he sort of had his poem, The Wasteland, and then he wanted to build in poems between the sections, and Ezra Pound's like, no. You only have one poem in your poem. It would be way too much if you tried to do more. My favorite part about this sort of editing relationship is that Ezra Pound writes T.S. Eliot this note, where he says, look, the poem runs from April to Shantieth. So if anybody knows the poem, it begins, April is the cruelest month. It goes from April all the way to Shantieth. That is 19 pages as a poem. Let us say the longest poem in the English language, which is a great way to spell language. I don't know if they didn't have spell checks or just Ezra Pound was playing around. And he says, don't try to bust all records by prolonging it 3 pages further. So it gave me a kind of idea of now I'm about to edit some federal appellate clinic briefs, and this is potentially what I'm going to say to them, Mr. Nixall.
You've already written the longest legal brief in the English language. Don't try to bust all records by prolonging it 3 pages further.
Right? Because it's often the case of very few times will you read a brief and you'll think to yourself, you know what, I wish this was longer. What we're trying to do is reduce it to its cleanest components. And so what's cool about this relationship, I'm sure T.S. Eliot was mad at a lot of this edits, because Ezra Pound went through and cut out so many things. But in the dedication to The Wasteland, he actually writes this in Italian for Ezra Pound. And I don't speak Italian, so I'm going to butcher this, but essentially he calls him Il Miglior Faboro, or in English, Mr. Black?
The better craftsman.
Yeah, so why does he call Ezra Pound, who just ripped apart his entire poem, the better craftsman?
Because he made it cleaner.
Yeah, he took away all the stuff that didn't need to be there.